throw out terms like midrash. So here's a volume of midrash. Midrashim are collections, and realize that I'm just pulling individual examples of these books, that there are multiple volumes and multiple versions of midrash. Midrash is a whole collection, a whole body of different literatures from different times and places. And one of the best descriptions is this is fan fiction. This is the rabbis, our teachers, our ancestors saying, wait a second, how do I understand Torah? And it's like a musical instrument. They're plucking at it and they're feeling the vibrations, trying to wrestle with and understand what are these texts teaching us. And what is the beauty of Midrash is so much of the Midrash has found its way into the Chumash, into the Torah commentary. So you might hear the name Rashi. Rabbi Shlomo ben Yitzhak, will find him in a little while as we go through some of the commentaries. And he's just one of those, and he's understanding and wrestling with commenting on Torah while he's reading the Midrash. For him, it's all one big body of literature. It's all going on in the same time. And so as we're reading these words of Torah, we have our surface level response to it. We're having those commentaries that are coming from the rabbis. We're having those ways that they teach us the values. How do we move through the world? And there's even stuff that is called sod, the secret mystical stuff that if you are someone that studies Zohar or Kabbalah, there's all kinds of secret teachings as well. So there's all of these layers of how do we approach these stories, and we're going to get into some of that. We're going to read the story, the base story first, and then we'll start to unpack it, and I'll bring you some different kinds of commentary. Now, as I say that, please realize that this is not going to be an exhaustive study of this story of Bilam or Balaam. This is just a few different threads of it to weave it together in a particular way. There are infinite numbers of commentaries, midrashim, ways of approaching this text and these characters. I'm just giving you little pieces of threads to weave it together to see some of the different ways to approach it. My goal for this is both that when you hear Ma Tovu Oalecha Yaakov, that you get a little bit of an understanding of that text, so you have more meat on the bones, so to speak, but also when you engage other texts that you might have some more confidence or a starting place to say, wait, what does our tradition teach? So I'm going to continue on. Do any questions so far? No questions so far. I'm going to start with a blessing, because before you really dive into the words of Torah, one of the things that's important to me is realize this isn't just a lecture. This isn't just me talking about a topic. This is an act of worship, of ritual. This is an act of connecting with the divine. That when two people study Torah, the divine presence rests between them. My goal is not just for you to learn from this to be better human beings. My goal is, as I am talking about this, I'm learning and engaging with the words of Torah to help myself engage with something that is holy. And so I offer this blessing, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign in the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to engage in the words of Torah. And there was a beautiful word, la'asok, which means to engage. I like to talk about soaking in the words of Torah. And one of the beautiful things about being on Zoom is you have that chat function. You are more than welcome at this moment to offer an amen, to say, I've heard, we are taking it to heart. We are here in the midst of this study. And so that gets us to the story of Bilam, of Balaam. And we're actually, so this is from Numbers 22. This is a JPS, Jewish Publication Society translation. And so we have Balak, son of Zippor. He saw all Israel had done to the Amorites. The people of Israel, Book of Numbers, they've come out of Egypt. They've left Mount Sinai. They are Bamidbar. They are in the wilderness. They're in those places of Bamidbar, of speaking in words. And Balak is in Moab. he is seeing them what they've done to the Amorites. Moab is alarmed because the people are so numerous. Moab dreaded the Israelites. And Moab said to the elders of Midian, now this horde will lick clean all that is about us as an ox licks up the grass of the field. And Rabbi she mentioned that I do a lot with biblical gardening. It's one of my interests, passions, and curiosities. And this is one of those moments that knowing a little bit about oxen and goats actually helps you understand that a little bit better, that the ox, when an ox is in the field, they're eating it down to the level of the field, so you wouldn't have any grass left in that field. That's what they're worried about, the people of Israel. My understanding is goats then even eat even further down, finishing off the roots. So you have to be careful about oxen or cows following goats, because the goats don't even leave anything for the oxen or for the cows. So here we have that concern, that fear. So Balak, son of Zippor, who is king of Moab at that time, he sends messengers out to Balaam, son of Beor in Pethor, which is by the Euphrates, in the land of his kinfolk. So Balak is in Moab, which is on the east side of the land of Israel. Balaam is near the Euphrates. He's in Mesopotamia. He's really far away, and yet Balak is reaching out to him. So clearly, Balaam is something to behold. He is really valuable. And he also Balak must also be aware that Balaam will understand something about this people of Israel. So here he gives his call. There is a people who came out of Egypt. It hides the earth from view. It is settled next to me. Come then and put a curse upon this people, since they are too numerous for me. Perhaps I can thus defeat them and drive them out of the land. For I know that he who you bless is blessed indeed, and he who you curse is cursed. So Balak is putting out the hit on the people of Israel. In that language of, wait, who you bless will be blessed, and those who you curse will be cursed, I hope you hear a resonance. And this is one of those moments I'm happy to open it up either to chat or to video if there's someone, if there is someone that recognizes that language of, if I bless you, you will be blessed, and if I curse you, you will be cursed. Where have we heard that language before, or where will we be hearing it in the next few weeks? And if someone raised their hand, so
in the chat, can you see the chat?
Yep.
Rabbi,
yes.
okay.
So Sheldon is saying in the promise to Abraham, we're coming up to Lech Lecha from in Genesis. We're coming up to the call in Genesis 12 of God saying to to Abraham, Lech Lecha ma'artzecha, go out from your land, and that's part of that call. Here you're getting Balak using that same language and saying to Balaam that he thinks that Balaam has that power. He arises in the morning and he saddles his donkey and he departs with the Moabite dignitaries. So Balak has sent messengers. Here is Balaam going forth. Again, do you hear a resonance? Where do we hear in a story that somebody gets up in the morning, they get a call to go out and do something, they arise in the morning and you saddle your donkey? It's a different Abraham story. It's the story of the binding of Isaac, the Akedah. And you get that same resonance, and it catches my attention as I'm reading this, that here you have in Numbers with the story of Balaam and Balak, that you're getting that same resonance of, just as Abraham is going out from the land of Mesopotamia, here you have somebody coming in from Mesopotamia and towards the land of Israel, just as Abraham is ending on his quest, going out on his quest with the binding of Isaac. Here you have Balaam going off and waking up in the morning. He gets a chance to sleeping on it, and he is saddling his donkey and going out. God is incensed at his going. So an angel of the Eternal One places him in his way as an adversary. And this is one of those places where having the English doesn't quite capture what's going on. The Hebrew here is Satan. This is one of those places where Hebrew Bible has Satan, as in Satan, as the adversary. And this is where it's a Hebrew Bible concept before it ends up with the devil and Satan in Christian imagery and literature much later, where Satan is something of a adversary, a rival, pushing back on Yetzer HaTov, pushing back on good choices, on goodness in the world, causing people to question what they're doing. We see some of that kind of same thing in the book of Job. Here we have it with an angel, with a malach. God is sending some type of being out in order to push back on humans as they move through the world. Bilam is riding on his she-ass with his two servants alongside. Now, here it has she-ass, and it'll soon change to donkey. I will freely tell you that I did change it in the JPS translation. It does have ass, which is really entertaining to read with a group of 12 and 13-year-olds. Probably about 10 or 15 years ago, I was teaching this text to my bar and bat mitzvah students. I didn't read it ahead of time, and it had ass there. And with 12 and 13-year-olds, it is absolutely hysterical to read it. They just crack up. Half of them will say ass and delight in it. The other half will say donkey and still snicker. Wait until you get to the part where Bilam is beating on the donkey. I'm here as a rabbi in my late 40s with kids that are now in college, talking to a group of adults, and I had to change the language of it because I can't say it with a straight face. And it's just one of those fun parts of reading the story. But he's got two servants. And again, echoes of Abraham. Abraham in the binding of Isaac goes out with two of his servants. The donkey catches sight of the angel of the Eternal One standing in his way, the angel with a sword drawn in his hand. Who sees the angel? It's not Bilam the prophet, the guy who's so well known as a prophet and a person who can do blessing. It's the donkey. It is absolutely stunning. It is incredible that here in the midst of Torah, that here you have a donkey who's having a spiritual experience, not the non-Jewish prophet who's being hired for his power of prophecy. But it gets better. The donkey swerves from the road, right? And one of the images here is you'll get from the Garden of Eden story that there's a flaming sword that protects when Adam and Eve go out of the garden. They're not allowed to come in because there's a flaming sword that's stopping their way. Here's kind of that same reference. And if you have watched, is it Good Omens or Bad Omens? It's there was a TV show based on a book. I think it's Good Omens. And there's a whole thing where they kind of show some of that flaming sword story that's there. The donkey swerves from the road and goes into the field. A lot of us have been horseback riding. If you're not very good, sometimes it's the horse that leads you, not the other way around. And so here the donkey goes into the field. Bilam baits on the donkey, so he's got his stick. He whacks the donkey, turning her back onto the road. The angel of the Eternal One stations himself in a lane between two vineyards with a fence on either side. So imagine Old Country Road. You've got a wall on either side. And now the angel is the donkey and Bilam are on their way. The angel stations himself again, stopping their progress. The donkey, again, seeing the angel, the Eternal One, presses herself against the wall, squeezing Bilam's foot against the wall. So he beats her again. Once more, the angel of the Eternal One moved forward and stationed himself on a spot so narrow that there's no room to swerve to the left or the right. So Bilam is now pinched in. And one of going back to Abraham, you have the angel calls out to Abraham, 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 Abraham hears. Here you've got the angel standing before, being very visible to the donkey, but Bilam doesn't see. It's just a very interesting, powerful contrast. The donkey now saw the angel of the Eternal One. She lies down under Bilam. So the donkey goes into a field. That didn't work for Bilam. The donkey goes back into the road, squeezes Bilam's foot. Finally, she just lays down. Bilam is still furious and getting angrier, beats the donkey again with a stick. The Eternal One opens the donkey's mouth, and she said, and this is where it's fun to teach the story, especially to young people and old who have seen the movie Shrek. Part of me wonders if it's Eddie Murphy's voice with a talking donkey, or a great thing where you see talking donkey in the Bible, not what you expect. So what have I done? So the donkey is now talking. What have I done to you that you've beaten me these 3 times? The donkey sees the angel. The donkey is the one with the prophecy and saying to Bilam the prophet, why are you beating on me? And Bilam says to you, you've made a mockery of me. How dare you? If I had a sword, I'd kill you. And the donkey says to Bilam, look, I'm a donkey. You've been riding me all the day. Have I been doing, do I have a habit of doing this to you? And Bilam says, no. And it's an interesting conversation, especially when you think about some of that language of Pharaoh and Moses, where we hear about Pharaoh's heart being hardened or Pharaoh hardening his heart. And you get this great challenge of, is it God not letting Bilam see, or is it Bilam's stubbornness? And that question from the donkey is like, you didn't stop and say, wait, why is my donkey behaving like this? This is out of character for her. You just continued to get frustrated and angry and beat on me. You didn't ever say, hey, donkey friend, what's going on? I see Margaret Cutler has a hand up. And so Margaret, what question or reflection?
Well, that's interesting. That was actually my oldest son's Torah portion at his bar mitzvah. But I've never heard what I'd like to know in the Hebrew is the donkey a she or a he. I've never heard it referred to as she, and I don't know Hebrew certainly enough that I would know that. So I'm interested to know that this translation, and as you've been speaking, has been she. It's always been he, it seems to me, through the years.
It is,
so
it is an atana, it is an atana, it is a she donkey.
Very nice. Thank you.
That one's a simple one. And so, yes, it is we actually do know the gender of the donkey. And that will actually come up in the commentary. So Margaret, thank you for actually pointing that out, because wait until you get to the commentary where we'll actually get it from the donkey's point of view. So here you get the donkey actually challenging by voice, and that will come up. The donkey saying, wait a second, why aren't you talking to me? Right. And we have pets. We have 2 dogs and a bearded dragon. The bearded dragon, and forgive me, my phone's just going to ring for a minute. The bearded dragon, he doesn't say much, but we also wonder when he does stuff, what is he trying to communicate to us? But certainly when the dogs run to the door, what are they hearing outside? Because their hearing is better, their smell is better. It's one of one of the values of this story is it gives us that opportunity to say, wait, what am I learning from the animals in creation? I don't know everything. There is something that they see that should cause me to be reflective and thoughtful about the world. The Eternal One uncovers Bilam's eyes. And so here we see that maybe God had covered Bilam's eyes. Bilam now sees the angel of the Eternal One standing in his way, his drawn sword in his hand, and he bowed right to the ground. It could be humility. He could say, wow, I'm bowing before God. Or it could be, oh, wait, there's a sword coming for my head. Let me duck. Again, Isaac, binding of Isaac, the sword is up. The angel in that case stops Abraham from swinging the sword. Here in this case, we get Bilam seeing the angel and ducking his head. So we're going to actually jump. This is kind of into Numbers 21. We're going to jump a little into a little bit of chapter 23. There's a lot more adventures here, but I want to have time for the commentary. And so Balak says to Bilam, what have you done to me? So Bilam goes forward. He has dreams about what he's supposed to do. Balak has dreams. There's back and forth between the two of them. And Bilam steps forward to offer curses, and blessings come out. Here, a little bit later in chapter 23, Balak is saying to Bilam, what have you done? I brought you here to damn my enemies. Instead, you've blessed them. And Bilam says, I can only repeat faithfully what the Eternal One puts in my mouth. If you remember from the beginning, it was Bilam is the wizard, he's the prophet, he's the one with the power. Here, as we get a little bit later into the story, Bilam's saying, oh, wait, I can only say what God gives me to say. It's an interesting turn of power. Chapter 24, Bilam, seeing that it pleased the Eternal One to bless Israel, did not on previous occasions go in search of omens, but turned his face to the wilderness. So Bilam, in the meantime, has gone into look for different ways. Wait, what am I supposed to be doing? Here, he's like, you know what? I'm just going to do what God tells me to do. Bilam looked up and he saw Israel encamped, tribe by tribe, and the Spirit of God, Ruach Elohim, comes upon him. So there he is up on a mountain. He's looking out. He sees the people of Israel encamped with their camps set up, and we get all kinds of descriptions of that. Taking up his theme, he says, the word of Bilam, son of Beor, word of man whose eye is true, word of him who hears God's speech, who beholds visions of the Almighty, prostrate but with eyes unveiled. Getting that imagery of what it was like in that moment where he is bent down, prostrate before with the donkey, seeing the angel with the sword up, and he says, Ma Tovu, O Alecha Yaakov, Mishkanotecha Yisrael. How fair are your tents, O Jacob, your dwellings, O Israel. If you're looking in a Siddur, if you're looking in a prayer book, all you see is Ma Tovu, O Alecha Yaakov. All you see is that one line. It's so easy for us to sing along. It's got a lovely, beautiful melody. They're beautiful words. But by peeling back some of those layers, by clicking on that link and coming back to this whole story, how much meaning, even just the shot, even just the surface level, how much more is now in that incredible story in just that simple line? Because every morning when we say those words, every time we're in synagogue, we're there for a bar bat mitzvah, we're there for high holy days. When we hear Ma Tovu, instead of just saying, oh, that's beautiful words, now we're really standing with Bilam. That whole experience with the donkey, that whole experience of, do I say blessings and curses? Am I saying what comes out of my mouth, or am I trying to tune into something greater than myself? Am I trying to tune into my best self? Am I trying to say words that somebody else is trying to offer so I undermine somebody else, that I drain somebody's bucket? Or am I looking out at the beauty of the world, tuning into something that is divine, that is transcendent, and tuning out the pettiness of other human beings to really offer blessing to the world? It's a huge challenge. It's a lot to take in. Every time we say those words, we don't have to be standing there with Bilam, but how beautiful and powerful, even if it's only every once in a while, to be able to take in all of that context when we say that text. So now we're going to get into the commentary. Again, if there are any questions or thoughts, please feel free to join in. I'm going to get into the, it looks like we have about 20 minutes left. And so I'm going to go through
20 minutes.
20 minutes. We're going to go into some of the commentary here. This is about, here you have about Bilam. This parsha contains what may be the only comic passage in Torah. Tells how Bilam reputed, and this is from Eitz Chaim, which is a Torah commentary coming out of the conservative world. This parsha contains what may be the only comic passage in Torah. It tells how Bilam, reputedly the world's best wizard, cannot find his way out of his own neighborhood, how his attempts to curse Israel are turned to blessings in his mouth. And the overall message, however, is a serious one. God continues to watch over Israel and extend divine protection to them. Despite their recalcitrant behavior and lack of appreciation, human efforts to harm the people of Israel will not prevail. Just in that one paragraph, there's a lot going on. So it would be easy to say this is a funny story about a bumbling guy who says he's supposed to be the best non-Jewish prophet in the world. It's got a talking donkey, and they're blessing instead of cursing the people of Israel, blessings come out. It'd be easy to see just as that's a fun story. It's great to teach with kids. However, as this points out, there's a lot going on. Number one, you have that the people of Israel are really struggling in the Midbar, in the midst of the wilderness, trying to stay in that path of holiness and kindness and grace and compassion. Very often we get derailed following our evil inclination. No matter how bad we get derailed, this is saying human efforts to harm the people of Israel will not prevail. That no matter what the people of Israel are doing to screw up their relationship with divine, that isn't necessarily licensed for the surrounding world to take it out on the people of Israel, which is a really powerful theology if we think about it. I'm going to keep going. The story's memorable feature is a talking donkey. Here, it's so many tales in folklore, when animals behave like humans, it raises all kinds of questions. What does it mean to be human? What makes us different from other animals? Seeing the angel blocking the path, the donkey can recognize better than Bilam does that what they are setting out to do is wrong. Human beings should have the capacity to know right or wrong. When the temptation or weakness blinds us to the wrongness of what we're doing, we are no better than dumb animals. So here's one type of commentary, and it's saying humans are superior when we start acting like this, when we start turning on our blinders, when we stop listening, when we stop acting with kindness and grace, we are no better than animals. Some people this resonate, and this is one of those things about midrash and commentary. Some of this is going to resonate with some of you, and some is going to resonate with others. Some of you are going to say, I don't like that midrash, and others are going to say, I like that midrash. That's the beauty of midrash. That is the beauty of commentary. Not all of it is going to work for everybody all the time. Rabbi Mates.
So Rabbi, it's so funny. Like, I'm just thinking about this and animals in lore, animals in religion, and, Egypt, which is a parallel time, animals are like part of their pantheon of gods. Like and I'm just thinking about in Judaism, like, this is so unique that the animal takes on these human abilities. And I'm wondering, is there like a mocking of Egypt that's happening here too? Like saying, like, we have this jokey moment where we're using an animal to talk, but you Egyptians, like, your part of your range of gods includes many animals.
That's a great question. I know that comes up in discussions of the 10 plagues, that the 10 plagues are kind of undermining the gods of the pantheon of gods of Egypt. I've never heard it in that context. This doesn't feel like this feels like pushing back against Mesopotamia as opposed to Egypt, but that doesn't mean it's not there. And that's a very powerful point, that a lot of the surrounding cultures, the animals are the gateways to the gods. Here you're getting the inverse of it, that the animal is seen as lowly, and it's only because God is taking kindness of it that it's actually raised up to be smarter than the average prophet.
Margaret has, you see, okay. Go ahead, Margaret. You got to unmute.
I did. Well, it's not normally what one would think, but when you think about it in their lives today, so often, animals have a certain instinct that we do not. Could come to danger, a lot of things. And we use animals to help us because they have such high sensitivity, finding bodies, finding drug, whatever it is. So I think we could also look at the animal, that we can look up to the animal, and sometimes the animal knows better than we do.
I would wholeheartedly agree. As I said, there are times when I'm going through a commentary that I really like the commentary, and there are others like, I'm not sure I love that one, but I didn't want to censor it and show you only the stuff that I either agree with or I love or resonates with me. Trying to kind of give you a little bit of a body of it so you can kind of see how this works, so that when you come across and you're reading Devar Torah from a rabbi, or you see a piece of commentary and it doesn't resonate with you, you don't close the book, because the very next sentence might be one that does resonate with you. And Margaret, your point is very well taken. How many people use support animals that just do absolutely amazing things. There's beautiful in our film festival where there was a young man who was dealing, I believe it was on the autistic spectrum, and actually swam with dolphins in Israel in the Red Sea. And it opened up a whole level of interaction and communication for this young man. And so absolutely, I don't like the commentary that talks about animals being lower to us. I do like much more as the approach to this of how do we as human beings partner with animals? What are the insights we get from interacting with creatures beyond ourselves?
I want to talk.
Go ahead, Clarice.
Yes. So this is all wonderful. I'm going to tell you an experience where I already used what you taught in a lesson that I learned somewhere. I was told, if you come across somebody that doesn't like you for no reason, you don't know why this person doesn't like you, they don't say good morning to you, hello to you, in a work situation, I decided I'm going to treat that person with kindness. I'm going to be so nice to her. And guess what? After a while, she turned herself around because it wasn't so bad for her and it was better for me. That's all.
And that is part of the commentary of this, of when we are interacting with someone and they pull to the left or the right, don't be a Bilam. Don't immediately hit back. Start asking those questions. Start asking those questions because you don't know what you might be missing. And that is the beauty of these texts. And it might be when I'm in the morning, I'm waking up and I've had one of those interactions. I say Ma Tovu, and we're all going to then remember this moment and what you just said, Clarice. And you're like, wait, Clarice said that. I just had somebody who was just short with me as I walked in the door. Do you remember that lesson with Rabbi Birnholz that we did? Wait, maybe I just need to be like Ma Tovu, donkey Bilam, let me take a step back. That's the power of memory and all of these texts and what they can wake up for us. And I'm putting it in the chat right now. If you please feel free to ask questions, or if you don't, but you can also, between the sessions, if you have other questions that you think about, you can send them to me, and I'll be glad to weave those answers into the discussion and the presentation as we keep moving forward.
Do you want me to drop your email in the chat?
You
Rabbi?
are more than welcome to do that. I can't talk and type. Sometimes
I'll do it. I'll do it.
Yeah, thank you. So some rabbinical sources see Bilam as an authentic prophet. So there's a lot of debate. Is Bilam really a prophet, or is he just a sham? Here you have some that are saying he's a real prophet. He's sent to the Gentiles as Moses was sent to the Israelites. For that reason, his incantations were to be feared, and God had to change his curses into blessing. So there was so according to some of the commentators, there was real danger from Bilam, and that God had to intervene in this moment. Others see that Bilam he's pathetic, he's an arrogant fraud whose only successful trick was to fool himself to believing God that approved of his intention. When the gift of prophecy was given to the Gentile nations, many of them misused it, seeking to destroy rather than to bless. And so here's kind of that going back and forth. You can see there are multiple opinions in any of these commentaries. And it's like the 4 children of Passover. Some of us are the wise, some of us are the wicked, some of us are the simple, some might not be able to inquire. But the real truth is that all 4 of those children are all us. And at different moments, we are going to be wise or wicked or simple or unable to inquire. And that is the beauty of commentary. Some different pieces of commentary or insight are going to speak to us in different moments. So here you see when the opposition between God and the sorcerer is the opposition between the true deity and human wisdom. Sorcery is one of the heathen arts, grounding people in believing in their own power to force God to reveal the divine secrets. So that's according to Yeskel Kaufman. And that one there's something called sympathetic magic or symbolic action. The sympathetic magic is believing that if I say the right incantation, if I wave the wand in the right way, I can control God, versus symbolic action, which is if I use this ritual or text or artifact, it won't control God, but it'll help me get in sync with how I move through creation. It will help me bring forth action in the right way or tune into the right values. It's an action that helps me connect with the right symbols so that I can move gracefully and righteously through the world. And that is Bilam is, if he believes in his own power, he's going to bring about evil or destruction. If he tunes into the divine, he can lift the whole experience into something amazing. I want to just continue because I want to get to the donkey. So here's one of the donkey. And this is from one of the different commentaries from the URJ website, has beautiful Torah commentaries and Divrei Torah. So the question is asked, what happens to the donkey? Where has she come from and where does she go? The ancient rabbis suggest the donkey speaking from the mouth was one of the exceptions to the natural order created in the final moment of the week of creation in the twilight zone of Genesis. Medieval commentators debate whether the donkey really spoke or whether the whole thing was a dream. Medieval and modern scholars agree the story is meant to be funny with a donkey who sees more than a prophet. It's entirely possible to see her as a beast of burden who helps carry the story.
Nice.
What was that?
Nice. That's really nice. A beast of burden who carries the story. Very literal.
Yes. Just as she's a beast of burden for Bilam. So she is the vehicle for the story, just as she's carrying Bilam. And that one, Rabbi Mates, is kind of beautiful. Just as she forces Bilam to stop and really look at the situation, maybe she gets us to stop and ask that question. Wait, why is a donkey speaking? And how do we listen to the animals around us? Or how do we look at situations to get ourselves to slow down? If we look more deeply, we can find something more. In a story that's all about perspective, the donkey deserves her turn. Maybe being a speaking woman is like being an ass, being a donkey, but I can tell you one thing, an ass seeing the angel when Bilam didn't. These were words spoken by Jarena Lee, a first African-American woman to preach the gospel publicly. She's an itinerant preacher from the African Methodist Episcopal Church in the 19th century, and a time when slavery was legal in the United States, and neither African-Americans nor women were enfranchised to vote. Her words remind us of how a female beast of burden, subjected to physical abuse, this donkey, is the ultimate image of powerlessness in social hierarchy. For the donkey to have a voice and transform power dynamics as much as when God turns curses into blessing. Strikingly, when the donkey speaks up, she doesn't tell the prophet about the angel standing in front of him. Rather, she draws her attention to what he did wrong on his abuse and her refusal to accept it.
I resonate. I just want to share. So for the Grand Aleinu, I won't go to the floor most years because I feel like as a woman, and the Grand Aleinu, if you remember, is what we do for everyone who's with us, where you go to the floor fully prostrate during the Aleinu, during the services on Yom Kippur. Physically, I don't think I could do it so well anymore anyway, but I never resonated with me because I feel like as a woman every day, I'm apologizing and subservient and bowing down. And I think there's something novel. Like I totally get her where she's coming from, feeling like the ass every day. Like so like there's so much there, and yet like, depicted as the ass. Cause like, I think that's been reality for a lot of women over like the centuries, that they're just they're assumed to have nothing there. And yet everything is there.
And what is powerful about this commentary, because that's absolutely right, and this commentary is even more, I will say, damning in a lot of ways, because it draws on the fact that the donkey doesn't share her perspective. She doesn't get to see, don't you see the angel there? She's the only thing Bilam can hear from her is that he's why are you beating me all of these times? And so it's so easy to get stuck into, I don't want to hear about how I'm hurting this person or that person, and not hear, we get so stuck in the debate of whether somebody is getting hurt that you don't even get to the discussion about those levels of perspective that people coming from different places that have been oppressed, how important and incredible those different perspectives of those human beings are to share. Susan, it looks like you're coming forward to say something, or you just unmuted.
Susan, who doesn't, I'm just ask you to start video. That might be, I'll mute them. Feel free to unmute. Whoops. All right,
So-
we have about 5 minutes. Oh, Susan,
Okay.
did you want to, Susan, were you saying something? Her audio's, I don't think her audio works. Okay. Go ahead, go on.
Okay. Bilam apologizes to God, but he never apologizes to the donkey. It is God who calls him on his behavior. If the she-donkey had not shied away from me, you are the one I would have killed, sparing her. And this is in Numbers. This gives the commentators the opportunity to discuss the donkey's fate. So that's, and this builds into, and as I share this with you, I wanted to share it, and Rabbi Mates, this is exactly why we have those, because this lends itself to that discussion. There are some people that are going to resonate with this type of commentary, and there are others that aren't, and that's part of the beauty of looking at a body of these pieces. So here you get now a discussion of what happened to the donkey. Rashi, Rabbi Shlomo ben Yitzhak, he's in France in the 11th century, argues that God kills the donkey after the episode. I don't love this one. Why? To preserve Bilam's dignity, to spare him the shame of having people point her out. That's the donkey who challenged Bilam and left him without comeback. I don't like that one. Sheldon, to prevent deification of the donkey. Hold that thought, Sheldon, because the donkey gets something interesting in another commentary. Moreover, points to why animals in general have no human understandable speech. For if she had the power of speech, humans would not be able to subjugate her. For she was the most foolish of beasts, and she was the wisest of men. And as soon as she spoke, he was unable to stand before her. And that's one that should be a real challenge of when we silence people, or we say we don't understand you, or that what we're really doing is undermining and taking their power away. And that should be a real pause for us. The implication is the perspective of animals in general, and the donkey in particular, pose a threat to human supremacy. They challenge our understanding of the world and the place that we occupy. Again, that to me would be a God forbid. That is, and I'm one of those that when we talk about Adam having dominion over creation, I do cringe. I'm much more of a till and tend and shomer Adamah partnership and taking care of the world than dominion over it. But in contrast, here's Abravanel from Portugal in 15th century. He suggests the donkey was elevated after the episode. In fact, her animal nature died and she was recreated as a human being and did not remain a donkey. What an extraordinary spectrum of responses. How evocative this is as any threats to the established order and the responses that emerge. Either the challenging voice is covered up or ignored, the donkey dies, or there is a change, the donkey and her role are transformed. Although our biblical text, the donkey simply disappears, she leaves us a legacy. Like a true prophet, she makes us uncomfortable. She makes us think about who we listen to and who we ignore, when we keep silent and when we speak.
It's
and
beautiful.
So I know we're right at the end. I can send more of the text, but there's a little more of, and I can actually, you know what? I'll come back to it next session because there's whole beautiful discussions about tents and the dwelling places of the community of Israel.
Jack, can you go quickly before?
Yeah, there are only two spaces that I know where animals talk, which is ridiculous in our light. One, of course, is the snake, but the snake is representative of the Satan, of God's messengers to test Adam and Eve on what was going on. The donkey was just doing its job. It was just avoiding it. I mean, it didn't have a specific thing it was supposed to do. It was avoiding being killed.
And
I don't know why so much emphasis is being placed on the donkey, which was just a sense of self-preservation.
I would actually even add it that the snake is Yetzer Hara, is the evil inclination. And here we get the donkey is actually the Yetzer HaTov, a good inclination.
I believe that the Satan, in other words, this isn't the Christian evil Satan. The snake in the one story was the fact that God, he was doing his job. He was proving that what God told Adam wasn't going to hold up. The donkey, on the other hand, had nothing to do with God, I don't think. He was just protecting his master and himself from being killed.
And so we could go on for another hour, when we will next week on Tuesday at noon. And because, Jack, what you're bringing up, that's the beauty of the discussion. That is real Torah study, because as we talk about this, and Clarice and Rabbi Bates and somebody else I think had chimed in as well, that's the beauty of it, because there's all of these are meaningful, powerful discussions that help us learn how we can be better humans. And what you're seeing is not that Rashi is wrong or Rambam is wrong or Abravanel is wrong, but in having all of their discussions, we it's like playing an instrument. We're learning how to, what resonates, what lifts us up, helps us tune in so we can be good human beings. And so thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you to Jake, our producer, who's not just talented, but funny as well. Rabbi Birnholz, this is wonderful to really delve into like such a targeted text with one person for the month. We're really excited to be with you. We'll be back here next time on all our platforms that this is on next Tuesday at noon. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week. Take care.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Michael. Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Yep. And
Take care.
We'll get the slides for you next week.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. It's fabulous. Take care. Thanks, Jake.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was